you know if Carl Jung was a Christian? Would he have described himself so?
So he grew up in a Christian home. His father was a minister, but he had quite a distant relationship with his father. I have, I do recall also having seen something that said that he also had multiple Christian ministers or pastors in his family history.
Mm,
But the kind of religiosity that his father had, Jung did not find attractive at all. He saw it as very stagnant and lifeless. So he became acquainted with Gnosticism quite early on in his life, and I think he also described himself as a Gnostic. There's a very interesting text from 1916, which also again wasn't published until it was found by one of Jung's students. It's called Seven Sermons to the Dead. And in this text, Jung basically writes under a pseudonym called Basilides, and it's essentially Sermon to the Dead, but the Basilides is a Gnostic heretic. So Jung had a great affinity towards the Gnostics because he felt that they had this understanding of the direct experience of the gnosis. So I think he saw his own life also being in the same lineage with the
mm,
Gnostics, that whatever message he had to share with other people had similar kind of message as the ancient Gnostics would have had. But I don't know if he would have considered himself to be a Gnostic towards the later part of his life, because then he was more interested in the alchemist already. And I
mm.
think there were certain things about Gnosticism that he also did not find resonance with. For instance, the idea that all of the material world is evil, etc.
Mm. Um, I, I think it's interesting that he perhaps didn't want to abandon Christianity and the religious roots, yet he also wanted to explore his own inner world, and he did want to bring in kind of inner experience. And I know from your essay, it was a really nice quote where it said that was it Young that said it, that faith lacked experience and science missed out on the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
So there's a way in which he is a figure which can criticize typical religions, and yet he also criticizes science. And yet, you'd have to say he's religious, and you'd have to say he's a scientific person because he's very, spiritual, and he's very systematic as well, and rigorous. And so he's this kind of bridging figure, and wanting to go beyond both science and religion.
yeah. I think he did, and he saw that psychology of the future, as you may say. He has, I think he does write a little bit about this. I think he was just one of these people who had this amazing ability to bridge history and future in one, and I think he really foresaw something about the the trajectory of psychology that most people at the time could have not
Mm,
digest in any way, because it was so futuristic. Maybe, I mean, I think he saw that um the sort of the reality of our inner experiences was so huge. I mean, that was really Jung's form of religiosity, was his devotion to the inner images and to understanding their symbolic value. And I think he knew somehow intuitively that at some point what he understood then was going to be more commonly understood, but the time for it was just not
mm,
yet while he was alive.
mm. Do you think he wanted to create his own religion? How different is it from religions of the past? How is he seeing himself connected backwards and sort of forwards into the future?
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to create his own religion necessarily. I know there's some critiques that are saying, I think he had a lot of inflated visions that I also described in the Red Book. For instance, in one vision, he's being crucified at a cross. So I guess you can say to anyone who is having that kind of vision that they're having somewhat of an inflated experience. But then when you think about all the people who have a psychedelic experience where they think they're Jesus Christ, it's not an insignificant number. I mean, these types of experiences happen happen to people, and I think
Mm.
what they say is more that I think in some ways that is the kind of realization or the manifestation of the divine spark within people. And I think there again comes the connection with Gnosticism. And I think he wanted people to understand that they had access to this type of relationship that could also be a guiding force in one's life. I
Mm.
think it's much, much more like an kind of inner spirituality
Mm.
rather than like, you know, Carl Jung led
Mm.
cult.
Mm. Mm.